Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, and in this particular video I'm going to try and address a question I've been asked quite a lot of late. It's about selling fine art prints. Now, I'm a photographer, so I'm primarily talking about selling printed photos, but this could cover other artwork as well. A lot of the marketing aspects are indeed quite similar. What about these big prints sitting around beside me? Well, I've recently been testing an Epson P7500 printer. Big printer, filled this space and produces big prints. Up to 24-inch width on it, so you can make quite large prints. I've produced lots of these prints and people have said, all right, Keith, what are you going to do with these prints? Well, I've got an excuse because I'm just testing a printer at the moment. So a lot of these are seconds. They will be recycled. They won't be used. But there are some nice pictures I've produced. And I've quite deliberately chosen pictures to try of different types that I wanted to experiment with. I've got lots of videos looking at the P7500, so if it's the print size of it, have a look at that. I've also got a video that actually addresses the question of, do you really want a large format printer? Because apart from the difficulty of just getting the thing in the house here, and the difficulty of getting it back out again, it's an interesting question as to whether you actually want one, given the costs. Cost about £3,000, the actual printer. But as I'll come back to costs in a bit, that's only a tiny part of what we're looking at here. The key question has to be, who will buy your prints? Not where can I sell them. You need to know who buys prints like your prints. Now, once again, I come back to what are your prints and what are they like in a bit, but the key question is, who will buy your prints? Also, what do they buy? Do they buy fine art mounted prints? Do they buy prints on fancy backings, metal backings, perspex, the likes of that? Do they buy canvas prints? Now, this is a canvas print. It's printed, ready to be stretched. It has a border on it. Do you count canvas prints as fine art prints? Does your market consider them fine art prints? Or are they just decorative wall art? Because decorative wall art is unlikely to sell for quite the same amount as fine art. And as I once again, I'm not going to attempt to explain what fine art means. It means something different to every single person. It's a marketing term, so it has that fluidity with it. So in other words, nobody really knows what it means. It means whatever you want it to mean. So you've got an idea what they buy. Do you know what sizes they buy? These prints are unlikely to find homes, many of them, so apart from the fact some of them are scrap anyway, but these prints, because they're just too big. Now, producing them at small sizes, does that work? Now, I did a video, and this was one of the prints from it, looking at how big you need to make a print for it to work. And it shows that some prints work far better at larger sizes. So maybe your pictures just don't work at smaller sizes. However, people may be more inclined to buy small postcard size prints. They may try them, they may decide they like them, they may then go to a larger print. So always think when you're making a print, not just the one print, but this is a sales line, this is a product line. If you don't like thinking of your photos, your prints as products, take that as a hint that maybe you're not really looking at this as a business. That's fine. It could be a hobby. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to think of these things as potential products if you're looking at selling things. Now, that doesn't mean you describe them to other people as products. But you yourself have to consider them that way, because if you don't, if you have an attachment to them, then that can cloud your business judgment, if it's a business. Now, once again, your business judgment can be separate from the persona that you project as a photographer, as an artist. But I'll come back to that in marketing things in a bit. So you have an idea who buys things, you have an idea of what sorts of things they buy. Great, that's good. Where do they buy them? Because now you know your target audience, you can look to see where they go, where they buy things. Now, art sales and the likes here are just simply not a thing for photography here in the UK. Now, I know some in the US sell prints and there's much more of a market for it than there is here. Here, if I want to sell prints, I better open up a small gallery by the seaside or something like that and sell majestic seascapes and interesting pictures of seabirds and beach huts and things like that. Know what sells. I would just mention that I have produced quite a lot of videos and articles looking at the business side of photography. So if you're curious and want more information, have a look in the Business of Photography playlist. There are loads of different aspects of prints and selling prints, making prints, why you would make them, covered in that. But anyway, so we've now got an idea where people buy them. Well, that's great. How much do they pay? If you don't know how much your market is willing to pay, then how can you price things? Just one other thing, if your market buys things in a gallery, for example, you have to accept the fact that the gallery expects 50 to 100% markup on price. So just because you see a print being sold for £150 in a gallery, the artist or photographer is getting perhaps half of that, and from that they've got to cover their costs. You can see that actually selling via an intermediary can be quite expensive. You've also got to think about framing and mounting, because that's not cheap. I often supply prints as is, rolled up in a tube in some tissue paper, and leave the mounting decision to whoever wants the print. You could say that's because I'm not serious about this business of selling prints. Well, in some ways you'd be right, because we've looked at it from a business point of view. I've been running Northlight Images here for nigh on 20 years, and print sales has been an intermittent part of the business virtually all that time. It's not a significant part of the business because the costs versus the returns of it means it just doesn't fit. Now, happens to be something I enjoy doing. I do the videos. I've been writing articles for a long while about how to make things like this, why I make them, what you can learn from things. Printing like this improves your photography. Your photography has to be technically at least fairly competent to be able to produce large images that look okay and don't have obvious deficiencies and faults in them. That's nothing to do with their artistic merit or content. That's just from a purely technical point of view. Making large prints needs a bit of skill. If you want to outsource your printing, then that's more costs. You've got to know about the quality of what's being produced, all the things like that. I'd be very wary of outsourcing my printing, but then I've been doing printing for years. Printing may be something you want to take up. It may be something you think is not really worthwhile. What it comes down to, all this stuff about selling fine art prints, the biggest question I ask people when they come up with plans, and people often send me quite detailed plans about what they want to do and what they're thinking of doing. And my question, apart from the ones I've said who and what and why, is this a hobby or is it a business? Or is it a hobby that you think might make a bit of money and you think maybe at some point will make a business? Because the transition can be tricky. When it's a hobby, you're spending money. Any money that comes in is a bonus. It's nice. It makes you feel good that somebody has bought one of your prints. That's good. It still makes me, even after all these years, somebody wants one of my prints on their wall. That's great. Gives me a nice warm feeling. That's good, they liked my work. Great, and I've sold something. Now, the money from that, it really depends. When you cross over into a business, suddenly, in a way, the costs become real. So you've got to consider your true costs. And remember, it's not about turnover, it's not about the number of prints you sell, it's about the profit you make. So if you sell 100 prints and they're costing you 20 quid each, then you've lost quite a bit of money if that's a business. If they make, after you've covered your costs and everything, if they make £20 a piece, then you're making a profit. You then need to see, is that profit enough? Is it enough? I'm going to say, I don't know, very few people here in the UK can truly make a living just from selling prints. Likewise with landscape photography. Many years ago when I thought about becoming a professional photographer, I talked to someone who'd been in the business for years and they said, well, what do you want to do? And I rattled off a load of things. And I said, oh, and I'd like to do landscape as well. And they said, yeah, no money in it. Just blanket, no money in it. The money comes in offering training courses, and other associated business activities and things. Look at people who do much in landscape photography. Look at what other businesses they involved in. Do they do tours? Do they do teaching? I do teaching. I will teach people how to use printers to make these. I will teach people how to use tilt shift lenses. That's all part of my photography business. That's how I've diversified into something more than just plain taking pictures and selling prints. That basic model really doesn't work very well. If you can get it to work, then good luck to you, but I'm going to say very few people ever do. So it's all about costs. It's about understanding your real costs. That includes your time. That includes things, if you get into framing. Framing can be phenomenally expensive if you want to do it yourself. The equipment to cut proper miters on frames and to put them, that's expensive kit. You need somewhere to work it. Another thing, if you want a large printer, now the printer that I had here fitted in this space. That's great, but I need other space around to handle the prints. Prints like this can be quite delicate, so you need to handle them carefully. You've got to consider all those other aspects. Now, I'm not trying to put people off a business of selling their prints. Just go into it with your eyes open and accept that it may be just a hobby that occasionally makes a bit of money, but that you really enjoy doing. There is nothing wrong with that. If you can afford it, then go for it. I know people who buy printers like this and never have the slightest intention of selling a print. They might be tempted, someone might come along, they're more likely to give away prints. They do it for the enjoyment of it. Large printers, like the one that was here, are a bit like owning a classic car. Fun to use, expensive to keep and maintain, and needs regular use. That's the other thing. If you buy a big printer, you've got to use it regularly. Having it sit several weeks between use is not a good idea for large printers like that. They're meant for continuous use. They're meant for a lot of use. So having looked at all those aspects of who's going to buy stuff and everything else like that, and is there any money in it and that, we come to what is the elephant in the room, marketing. Now, art marketing is a game. And if you want to do well, you need to learn to play the game. Now, depending on what markets you're selling your products in, and you will know this from looking at your business anyway, there are certain expectations, there are certain conventions, and there are certain ways things happen. Now, you'll learn some of this by when you go back to that question of who buys things, what do they buy, and where do they buy it? What is all the collateral material around buying prints from people that you're thinking of entering into that similar market? Well, there's an awful lot of art marketing guff. My favourite is the use of the term Giclee. If you catch anyone using the term Giclee and you think they actually believe it and they're serious about using it, then be worried, because they're deluding themselves. I've done a video about Giclee, why it's utter nonsense, the term, but it can be a valid marketing term. Now, this is where you have to learn to separate, as I said earlier, your business persona from your artist photographer persona. This is if you want to do this. You might decide it's a load of hokum and you want nothing to do with it. Well, you're running the risk of actually cutting off yourself from some markets. Now, it doesn't matter if you really don't want to do that, and I'll admit it's something I find difficult doing. Enter that into how your business works or doesn't work, or how your hobby progresses. Look at exhibitions, the whole gallery scene. Now, there is no gallery scene here in Leicester where I live. I really dislike visiting London. It's not a place I've ever liked. If I was interested in galleries and things, I'd probably want to be involved in stuff going on in London. I just don't like the place. It's a choice I've made, so I don't even go anywhere near that side of things. It covers other aspects of photography as well. We simply don't quote for work in London. It's too expensive and it's rarely worthwhile from a business point of view given all the inconvenience. Now that to me also goes with the art side of things, the printing side of things. I just really am not that interested in it. If that's your attitude, then you're going to need to get over some of that if that is the market you want to get into. Things like archival papers. Now, I happen to know this particular paper here has some optical brighteners in it. Not much, but I believe there is some. That means it's not truly archival. This one, this thinnish luster paper here, definitely isn't archival. Canvas, well, it's a canvas printed with pigment inks on a bright glossy canvas. I don't think that's archival either. Decide what you mean by archival. Now, there's lots of technical information about how long prints last, but there is the technical information and then there is how you use it as part of your marketing or choose to use it. Another aspect would be certificates of authenticity. In some markets, these are absolutely vital. In other markets, so if somebody bought a print from me here in Leicester and wanted to put it in their office, if I gave them a certificate of authenticity, they'd just look at me and wonder what I was talking about. Why was I bothering with such a thing? It has no meaning. But if in the market you want to be in, if things like certificates of authenticity mean something, go along with it, produce them in a format which matches what people expect, because it's matching people's expectations, which is the important bit in terms of selling stuff to people, because that's what you're doing, you're selling stuff to people. In marketing your images, there's one other bit, and this is something I have also personal difficulty with. You'll realise by watching this why, some of the reasons why I never really got into print sales. I just wasn't able to play along with it. What role are you playing as the artist or photographer? Are you happy with playing a role? Now, anyone who refers to themselves with a single letter name, for example, that to me has stepped over the line. I couldn't do that with a straight face. If you can, then wait, there might be a future for you yet in fine art or something else. It is purely marketing. I find it personally slightly irksome, but if that's what works for your business, go that way. I'm not advising for or against it, but remember that an aspect of the print sales business is all about image, your image, not the one on the paper. Talking of the image on the paper, do you have a style of images? Have you any idea what that actually means? I'm sure there are lots of academic articles and lots of things written about developing a style for your photography and what it means. It's one of those things, it's marketing, so it means whatever you want it to mean. If you're happy with that sort of stuff, think about, do you have a style? Now, Karen tells me that certain photographs of mine, she can recognise them because I have a particular style in some of my commercial work. That's fine. I'm happy with that. If she recognises it, hopefully other people, clients and the likes do as well. But our commercial photography work is nowhere near the same as selling fine art prints. That's something entirely different. Remember that if you want it in the marketing, you need probably, if you're going to make much money out of it, to build up a brand. Now, going back to what I said earlier, you can separate that brand from your business side. And the one thing I would always say is, don't believe your own publicity too much. Just be careful. Because as I say, there are various things. If anyone, as I say, for example, uses the term Giclee to me and in a non-ironic sense, then I'm concerned. Remember as well, one last bit of finish off on this is that good pictures are not enough. It's not about the pictures. It's not about what you think they're like. It's not about necessarily what they mean to you. It could be about what they mean to you if you're writing it up and you're creating some blurb to go with a picture. But remember, it's a business. Do you want to get into it? Well, good luck to you if it works for you. I hope these videos are of some interest. I've got lots more business videos. Please do subscribe to the channel. I've got lots more stuff coming up. Now the big printer has gone back to Epson. I will miss it because I was quite enjoying making these large prints. As I say, please do ask questions. Always appreciated, and thanks for watching. And always, just don't take yourself too seriously if you get into this market. Thanks.